The Mach 4 and the Clifton 8 are two shoes from the same company that each fall in the daily training category. What's the difference between these two shoes? Time to lace them up and put them to the test. .26 miles, 9 minutes, 2 seconds per mile, 136 beats per minute today, going for a nice and easy run, a recovery run in the Hoka Clifton 8. Also throwing in a couple of sets of stairs in there as I'm getting ready now for my first trail run in just a couple of weeks. I also did a very similar run earlier this week in the Mach 4, about the same distance, did a couple of sets of those same stairs so that I can compare these two shoes head to head. Now, before I give you my thoughts on these two shoes and what the difference is between them and why they both exist in the Hoka lineup, I do want to go over some disclosures. Both of these shoes were sent to me at different times from Hoka for the purpose of review, but they're not paying me to make this video or to put these two shoes into a versus or a comparison video. They're not going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with those disclosures out of the way, let's talk about the Mach 4 and the Clifton 8. First, let's go over some specs. In the Mach 4, we've got a 5mm heel drop shoe with ProFly as the midsole, which is actually a combination of two foams. One is this gray layer, which is a bit of a softer material, and then the white layer in this shoe is a rubberized EVA, because on the outsole, there's no rubber coverage at all. Instead, you're running directly on some of that midsole foam. Now, as far as stack heights go on this shoe, I think there's a little bit of confusion as to what the stack heights actually are. I've been going with 35mm of stack height in the heel and 30 in the forefoot. That's what some other outlets are reporting as well. But yet there are also some outlets that I tend to respect very much that are saying that the shoe is a 29mm stack height shoe, but still, nevertheless, in either event, what we have is a very tall stack height shoe that does have that ProFly midsole material that's in there. Up top, we've got an engineered mesh, which I think is very comfortable. It's not the roomiest of uppers. It's not exactly like a foot-shaped toe box by any means, but there's plenty of room in there for me so that I can use this shoe not only for my daily training, for my long runs, but also for those recovery runs as well, where my feet might be a little bit beat up. The lacing system, there's plenty of eyelets, so there's lots of ways to really tailor in the fit, and I think it fits really nicely. The tongue is a mesh tongue, which is very lightly padded, not a minimal tongue, but not a super puffy tongue. I think it strikes a nice balance for an everyday trainer. Around back in the heel, there is a pretty aggressive Achilles flare and quite a bit of structure in this heel cup. It kind of like mirrors this gray stripe that goes along the back, and it's pretty rigid to help keep the ankle stable in the back. There's also the swallowtail design that's kind of like this butt chin that's in the back of this Hoka shoe. We've seen it in a couple of other Hoka shoes as well. It's supposed to kind of like help with kind of distributing impact forces if you're crashing back here on the heel. All told, this comes in at a total weight of 8.0 ounces, or depending on which source you're looking at, those sources that are reporting the lower stack heights are reporting a higher weight of 8.2 ounces, but it's right in that low 8-ounce territory for my US men's size 9. Now, moving over to the Clifton, we have a lot of similarities in terms of kind of what the specs are for this shoe. This shoe is being reported as a 29mm stack height shoe, identical to what some others are reporting for the Mach 4. And it still also has that 5mm drop, giving us 24mm of stack height in the forefoot. And instead of the ProFly kind of like two foam system, we've got the compression molded EVA that Hoka has been using in their shoes for a very long time. On the outsole, we have an updated outsole pattern, which I've been liking. It seems to be a little bit more streamlined. It seems like there's a little bit less rubber in the outsole, which I kind of like because I do feel like you don't really need a ton of it to be able to protect this much midsole foam that's down here. It still provides plenty of grip and traction. Up top, we have, again, another engineered mesh. This one is a little bit softer, a little bit stretchier. The mesh seems to be a little bit more breathable compared to, say, the Mach 4. On the tongue, we've got a very puffy tongue, which is new for the Clifton this year. It kind of reminds me of more of like a max cushion shoe, something that's looking for just extra memory foam type of comfort up top. Not a huge fan when shoes get puffy, especially when they get puffy in the tongue, because it usually, to me, just means that the shoe is going to be a little bit more snug and kind of like takes up more space in the shoe because of that tongue, but it also means it's going to be a little bit more hot. Around back, we have a very similar setup to what we saw in the Mach 4. It might even be the exact same setup, just like the chassis is the same, but the upholstery is like a little bit different. Instead, we've got a little bit of memory foam, so like a little bit of extra plushness in the Clifton 8 compared to the Mach 4. But in terms of the stability and the structure that's back here in the heel cup, you've got the same thing. There is no swallowtail at the back of the Clifton, but it does have like a little bit of extra junk in the trunk to give you a little bit more of a crash pad if you are a heel striker or if you're coming downhill and you're hitting back here in the heel so that it's a little bit softer of a landing. All told, this entire package for the Clifton 8 comes in at 8.8 ounces. So with the specs taken care of, what is it like to run in each of these shoes? Both of these shoes are fantastic daily trainers. I think that for a lot of you, either one is going to be a great choice for your summer miles as you're getting ready for those fall marathons. This year, fingers crossed for 2021, in the fall, we're just going to have a buffet of really great marathons to run, and you're going to be wanting to put in some regular miles starting now if you haven't already, so that way you can run as many of those races with as many of people safely as you can and just celebrate kind of like the return of in-person racing. Either of these shoes is going to be a fantastic choice for that. I think I'll do the summary first to kind of get that out of the way in terms of like where both of these shoes fit, and then I'll go and kind of backfill as to like in terms of like individual kind of like use cases and categories which one I prefer. I think the way that these two shoes fit is that they're both daily trainers, but amongst daily trainers, there's kind of a spectrum of use cases. So on one side, you might have like daily trainers, a shoe that can kind of like do everything. That's right in the middle. On the one end of the spectrum, you might have shoes that are daily trainers, but heavily cushioned. That could be good for like your really long run. Maybe you're not looking to make it your fastest run, but you're trying to set like maybe a long run PR. And you want a lot of cushion, you want a lot of comfort, or maybe you want that daily trainer that also can be really great for your recovery runs. You have that end of the spectrum. And on the other end of the spectrum, you've got your daily trainers, but that can also be used for some speed work. Maybe you've got some fartleks, some threshold sessions. Maybe you're gonna do a 5K time trial. Maybe you're even going to head over to the track. That's the entire spectrum of kind of daily trainers in terms of like the universe of versatility that I think a daily trainer could potentially fill. I think that the way these two shoes fits is if this is the center of that spectrum, these shoes kind of fit kind of towards the ends of each end. The Clifton 8 is a much more comfortable daily trainer, really great for those longer runs. And I feel like underfoot, it just feels a lot more plush. You've got a lot of that memory foam type of material on the tongue and in the heel. So it makes it just a much more kind of like a grand touring experience rather than more of like a race course type of experience. In the Mach 4, you've got that daily trainer, but that is a little bit more geared towards speed and can handle a little bit of faster paces. Maybe you're not looking to set long run PRs, but you are looking to get a little bit more kind of speed variety in your workouts and your runs over the course of a week. Then I think the Mach 4 is really for you. So that's kind of the overall summary, cutting to the chase. That's how I see both of these shoes fitting in the Hoka lineup. I don't think that most people need both of these shoes. I think you should pick one or the other based on kind of like what are your preferences for your daily training. Do you want your daily trainers to be a little bit more on the comfortable side, or do you want your daily trainers to be a little bit more versatile so you can take them out for those fartlek workouts or those threshold sessions. That's kind of how I would like break that down for most people. All right, now let's get into like how I got to that and what I think each shoe is better at. First, let's talk about the run experience of the midsole foams itself. I already mentioned that I feel like the Clifton is a more comfortable shoe. There is an ortholite insert in terms of the insole in here, which really aids in that step in comfort. But I also think that this compression molded EVA just squishes a little bit more. It's a little bit softer of a material for each foot strike. On the other hand, I think the Mach 4 is a little bit more firm. Yes, it's got this ProFly system where this gray layer is that soft material that you're landing on. I do ultimately feel like this is a bit of a firmer ride. So depending on what you're coming from or what you prefer, you might prefer having a little bit more kind of like road feel, having a little bit more connection with the surfaces that you're running on. And I also think that connection also aids to a feeling that the shoe is just a little bit more snappy and a little bit more lively. Because of that, I prefer the Mach 4 in terms of like the daily training. I just think that like on a regular easy run day, I'm probably going to be a little bit more excited to run in the Mach 4 than I would be for the Clifton 8. And that's probably because I feel like the Clifton 8 is much better for those days where I do want something more like a recovery shoe, like a max cushion shoe. I'm not a huge fan of like the max, like the thickest of the thick shoe genre. It's just not my favorite kinds of shoes to run in. I really like this kind of new like sub-genre that's kind of sitting in the middle between daily trainers and max cushion shoes that are like kind of like the more cushioned daily trainer. And that's exactly where this Clifton 8 fits in. If it's something where I know I'm just gonna be out there for a long time, want to get some time on feet, or if it's something where like I just had a hard workout the day before, which I did, and I want something that's gonna baby the feet a little bit, the feeling of that compression molded EVA in the Clifton 8 is just really nice. And overall, the shoe just fits very forgiving. I do wish it were just a touch wider in the toe box, giving me like that pinky toe just a little bit more room, because if I'm coming from a recovery run, I probably had my feet in some speed shoes or some racing shoes the day before, and that usually means my pinky toes got beat up a little bit. So like if they were just a little bit more forgiving right out here for this shoe, I just think it would just make the shoe even better for that purpose. But I do, for recovery days, prefer the Clifton 8. On that other side of that kind of like daily trainer spectrum I'm talking about though, if I do have to go fast, if there's gonna be maybe a workout or maybe generally just an easy run, but maybe a shorter portion of some speed in there, then I definitely think that I'm gonna be reaching for the Mach 4. I feel like for everything from moderate pace, marathon pace, all the way up to when I'm running strides and running closer to like a mile race pace effort, I feel like the Mach 4 does a really good job. Now, I'm not sure that I'd want to do like really intense long workouts solely in the Mach 4, but especially for something like a fartlek where it might be getting up to threshold effort, but it's a lot of on and off, some tempo changes, a lot of easy running mixed in with some harder running. That's where I feel like the Mach 4 really excels. It enjoys going fast. I feel like that rubberized outsole material that's in the ProFly does a really good job of giving me like kind of the support that I need when I'm pushing into the ground the hardest and I'm pushing off the hardest, and the force and the impacts when I'm hitting the ground are the most. I feel like there, that firmer midsole is kind of like doing its job, kind of like a really stiff suspension on a car. Like if you're just kind of driving normally, it might seem really stiff and harsh, but if you put it on a really windy race course where you're putting some forces into it, that's exactly what it's tuned for. That's kind of what I feel when I'm running in the Mach 4. So it can definitely handle my easy days, just my everyday, but it also can handle those times where I need to pick up the pace just a little bit. It makes it a very fun shoe for those days where I want to do easy training, but maybe have some speed involved as well. As far as the uppers go, I do think that the Mach 4 is a little bit more comfortable. Now, both of these shoes, the uppers, they're very similar. When I look at them closely, like it's hard to really tell them apart other than the fact that like the engineered mesh pattern is a little bit different. But I do feel like for whatever reason, I just think that the Mach 4 fits me just a little bit better. I don't know if there's just a tiny bit more room in the toes, which is just a sensitive area for me right now, I guess, like the pinky toe. I don't know if it's that there's one more eyelet in the lacing system than there is in the Clifton. Both of these uppers are really comfortable, but I just prefer the fit on the Mach 4. It just seems to just sit on my foot a little bit more naturally. I think the material on the Mach 4 is a little bit more structured, so it's kind of like protecting the volume of the toe box a little bit better, where because it's a little bit more flexible in the Clifton 8, I don't know if that's like, as I'm like lacing down the shoe, it's like creating some tension on top of the toes. I wish that the Clifton 8 had a little bit more room, again, to differentiate it and better kind of like situate it in that cushioned daily trainer category. I think that would make a little bit more sense to me. So with that being said, it's time for me to pick a champion in terms of which daily trainer I prefer for my set of preferences. And for me, it's pretty easy. I really like the Mach 4 a lot better. I think the Clifton 8 is a fantastic shoe. I just think that the Mach 4, for me and the kinds of running that I generally like to do, suits me just a little bit better. It's really an impressive shoe that Hoka has released this year. It's a very exciting, a very good daily trainer. So those are my thoughts on the Clifton 8 versus the Mach 4. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions, or better yet, feel free to stop by the live stream that I do just about every day on YouTube. It's always a lot easier for me to answer questions there, and I also would just love to hang out. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?